Welcome to the Scholasticum. My name is Brother Alexis Bugnol. I'm the president of the Institute. And today I want to do a brief talk on jus naturale for those who are unfamiliar with the concept. Aristotle held that the state arises from the formation of an individual society which aggregates villages, originating in the human family settlement patterns, and which aims to provide or guarantee something more than material needs. His theory of the origin of the state has been demonstrated by archaeological evidence on the rise of human settlements. For Aristotle, this something more than mere material needs has to do with the perfection of human society as a society of humans. Man as a rational being who is distinguished as superior to all other natural things by himself because he has reason, thus considers himself in his rational interests superior to himself according to his natural and utilitarian interests. From this self-reflection, the coming into being of states reflects the cultural self-awareness of the citizens in what distinguishes them as humans. Against Aristotle's views that the state is merely a convention or agreement, against Aristotle's views is that the state is merely a convention or agreement. While Aristotle admits that lesser forms of society or economic cooperation can be of this kind, he denies that these are states because they do not have the purpose to provide anything more than what is agreed upon. And since man's rational perfection goes beyond merely positive written agreements, a state which is thus limited is not truly human. From this reflection, we can see that a society by convention is weak, because when trust is broken or convention fails to be observed, against what criterion do the members of such a society judge whether the convention is to be maintained, restored, or abandoned? That they can make such a decision which does not respect the convention means that the convention itself cannot be a stable society, and thus is not really a state. For state comes from the Latin status, meaning a standing firm. Also, the theory of the state as a convention really begs the question, since no man can enter into an agreement with another man without previously conceiving for himself something for which he wants to enter into an agreement. And if that something is merely utile, then one should rightly call the convention not that of a government, but of a mercantile agreement or the like. So if social conventions exist, and they do, then there must be a criterion apart from and pre-existing to them by which the common parties agree to enter into the agreement. And so one returns to the reflections of Aristotle and the nature of what man is. Clearly then, there can be no state which is defined as a convention among those who see themselves as rational and those without care for rationality, because then you would be trying to come to an agreement among two parties, one of which believed in objective unchanging standards and one which only recognized present desires or wants. And such a convention is a treaty, not a state, because it is not stable and it cannot be stable, and because it is a convention among two different concepts of human society. So the concept of natural law as pre-existing the state is implicit in the recognition that we humans are superior to all irrational beings, and for that reason it is a higher good. Higher goods must be protected in a more refined manner than lesser goods, since on account of their more spiritual nature, the means of protection must be ordered to them proportionally. From this observation, we can see that all living things have the right to live, in a way that non-living things have the right to exist, and in a way that non-living things don't have the right to exist. Again, we see that living rational things have a right to life in a way that non-rational things have the right to live and don't have the right to live. All human societies accept these fundamental principles when they are not in a state of decay from a state into a mere convention. And this is why there is such a close relationship between law and religion. Because apart from the state and all written law, there must exist a norm by which the citizens of the state agreed to create the state, and this norm must reflect the purpose of their rational life. And this relationship between the purpose of man as he recognizes it and the rational perfection of man, which makes him superior to all other living things, is inherent in the very notion of rationality, as that which is able to distinguish between disparate, different, diverse, and very similar things. And thus, prior to all written law, and even after laws are written, there is an implicit in every state or human society some reference upon which any disagreements can be judged effectively, and every contract broken be recognized as broken, even if written laws do not specify or say otherwise. And in this collection of principles, which can be rationally discerned as self-evident, pre-existent, implicit, necessary, we encounter what is known as natural law in the Thomistic or scholastic notion of the concept. Natural law theory begins to be worked out on these principles in the 15th century and has its own history, which I will not review here, other than to say that it takes up these fundamental debates in various authors and schools ever since that time. From these simple reflections on man, society, and the state, we can now move on to discuss the more common principles of natural law or right. Natural right, or jus naturalem, is the name for that which is owed to be recognized about a thing according to the order of being which is found in nature. And it is distinguished from natural law inasmuch as the term law implies a legislator, and natural law, therefore, is the concept of natural right in those systems of thought which recognize either a creator or nature as the author of them, either properly or metaphorically. Man's recognition of natural right implies a recognition of natural law, inasmuch as men's recognition that there are principles of right which are superior to all men leads them to attribute the origin of these principles to something higher than themselves. But leaving aside the philosophy of the origin of natural right, let us now reflect on those principles which chiefly impinge upon human positive or written law and human society and human states. The natural right of self-defense is the right which recognizes as implicit in the fact that life is superior to non-life, and that the rational is superior to the irrational, and that good itself of itself has the right to exist because it is good. Contrariwise, evil of itself has no right to exist because it is a privation of what ought to be in a thing which ought to have it. As regards men in a state or society or outside of each or both, then there is a natural right to self-defense as regards all which pertains to the individual human as a human individual. Rights also are goods, and so the right to defense enjoys the right to be defended. Man as a maker of tools, therefore, enjoys the right to defend himself with his own tools, some of which can be instruments of defense or offense, since physical defense may sometimes require action rather than simply response. From the natural right of self-defense, as recognized by a community of men, there arises the authentic notion of the state as a society organized by common laws for the purpose of defending the innocent or honest from the guilty or dishonest. When a society then becomes corrupted so much that the state becomes a tool to defend the guilty or the dishonest and to subjugate the innocent or the honest to them, the state, morally speaking, ceases to exist, even if it remain according to its institutions and laws. This is how the theory of the state as a convention has value in recognizing that there might be moments in the history of human societies when the presuppositions which all members had when the state was formed, or which all must have to preserve the state in being, are violated or abandoned by one or both parties. In such cases, men must appeal to and recognize the existence of principles of natural right, which are the norms by which the corrupted society can be judged as corrupt, reformed, renewed, or destroyed. And thus the right to bear arms is a necessary presupposition of every truly human state, because though convention can arise by which the majority forego to use this right, such a convention no longer exists when those who exercise this right on behalf of all are no longer rule for the sake of the common good for which the state was brought into being, the defense of the honest and against the dishonest. The right of revolution is thus also implicit in the natural right of self-defense, whether peaceful or violent, depending on what is necessary to secure, once again, the human rights of humans in a state. And this is a short introduction to the concept of natural right, the natural right of self-defense, and the natural right of revolution. God bless. Adonai.